Hello there. It's time to sip some tea. You know what day and time it is. It's the tea with April Ryan. Thank you for joining. I'm telling you, we've got a lot to talk about. And I've heard from a lot of you lately, and I'm telling you, a lot of you this week. We watched the popcorn, we saw the drama on Tuesday night. As the president walked in to um, that abominably watched State of the Union address that had the least viewers than any of his State of the Union addresses. He walked into that State of the Union address. Now, this is according to CBS. He had a 60% disapproval rating. According to CBS, that's their poll numbers. Now, and CBS is supposed to be that group that's leaning towards Trump. So he's unlikable. Let's just call it what it is. He's unlikable. And I saw someone that we all know, James Carville, way back from the Clinton years. He gave one of the most poignant statements about this man and Donald Trump, the president of the United States, and his unlikability. Let's go to that clip.
I have a personal message for Donald John Trump. And you sit still, you son of a bitch, when I'm telling you this. I'm going to tell you right where you are, you fat, sorry sack of shit. People hate you. Now, let me give you, and I'm not just saying this because I don't like you. I'm saying this because I'm telling you what's happening to you right now. And get ready to tell you what's going on. First of all, everybody is stabbing you in the back. You can trust no one. I saw the story today where, of course, the Pentagon, because your boy Pete, he can't control shit, okay? Was already back leaking that General Kane told you about all the dangers in bombing Iran. Because why are they doing that? Because they hate you. And they're going to leak, and they're going to talk to the New York Times, and they're going to talk to everybody else, just like your own staff, right? Susie Wiles, she hates you. That's evident. Sherry already told you that. They're all leaking like crazy. They're all wondering what's going to happen in the next job. They don't give a shit about you, okay? They really don't. No, you can't trust anyone. Trust no one. What? Okay, maybe Stephen Miller. Okay, I'll give you that one. Now, the Congress, they can't stand you. They're not going to pass shit for you. They're not going to do anything for you. They hate you. They know that you're bringing them down to a staggering defeat. Don't trust any of them. I wouldn't, even the ones you couldn't trust couldn't do shit anyway. Like Mike Johnson, you don't know whether to whine his ass or scratch his watch. Supreme Court, well, they left the fucking house. I mean, they got their corporate masters to deal with. You're not part of the fucking equation. They don't care about you anymore. They use you. You appointed them. They fuck you. Great. That's just where you are. You know, but sit still, Trump. I'll tell you to sit still when I'm talking to you, son of a bitch. Okay? When you're a loser, you lose. And man, you are a loser, a big-time loser.
Ooh, colorful language. James Carville. Well, let's go to Congress as James Carville talked about people in Congress not liking. Let's take a look at two people in Congress from Tuesday at the State of the Union who definitely don't like Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
And inside the chamber, Texas Representative Al Green was escorted out after waving a sign that read, quote, "Black people aren't apes," in response to a video posted to the president's Truth Social account showing former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama's faces as the heads of cartoon apes. It was taken down following backlash.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
And if you couldn't hear it and you didn't understand it, Ilhan Omar definitely said, Congresswoman, And let me get that right in the midst of a time when Donald Trump is trying to diminish people. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, elected Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, retorted to Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and the well of the House, "You have killed Americans." Now, there's a contradiction as to the State of our Union. Take a look.
I say tonight, members of Congress, the state of our union is strong.
In my opinion, the state of our union is traumatized.
Woo, that's deep. That is deep. The state of our union is traumatized. According to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, the president continues to want to believe these things, these narratives that are just not true. This affordability issue. Let's talk about the tariffs. They're now into effect. The new set of tariffs, let's say, they went into effect at 12:01 on Tuesday, that 15% global tariff. There are some exceptions, but you are now having a 15% global tariff imposed on you. And this president does not believe, for some strange reason, that it doesn't affect your pocketbook. How weird is that? Okay. I know for a fact. Now, I know a lot of us go and shop on the internet, but I'm going to tell you some of the things that I've liked, the price has gone up. Have they gone up for you? They've definitely gone up for me. The price has gone up. And I don't know where he gets this from. He is a man who does not cut coupons. And even before, and I've said that before, because it's important that we have presidents and people in office who understand what it looks like to make ends meet, who have been people on all rungs of the economic spectrum. He's only been on that higher rung. So he doesn't know what it looks like. He doesn't know what it looks like to be a real person. Has he ever had to have franks and beans? No. Well, unless they had gold laced in them or something. He hasn't had to do those kind of things. But think about this affordability issue. Donald Trump talked about tariffs before he ever ran for president. This is something he wanted no matter what, by any means necessary. And now look what he's doing, because he's upset and he wants his way, what he's doing in Minnesota. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute as we get into our next guest, Kica Matos, the president of the National Immigration Law Center. I can't wait to talk to her as our team is setting her up now. I see her there. I see you, Kica. We're bringing you in soon. But guys, okay, they're telling me you're good to go. So Kica, welcome. Welcome, Kica.
Thank you for having me. I brought my cup of coffee with me, and I will say that I tell people that I have 1 cup of coffee a day, but what they don't realize is the size of my coffee mug.
Oh, where did you get? I love those type of mugs. Oh my gosh. You need to be on Coffee With in the mornings. Oh my gosh.
I will send you a link to where to buy this coffee mug, because it's what keeps me going.
As long as I don't have to pay a tariff on it, okay? Gosh. So Kica, let's thank you so much for coming. I'm really appreciative of this. There was no policy in the State of the Union address, but he did rant about immigration.
Mhm.
Tell me what you feel about Tuesday and now 2 days later.
I am as disgusted today as I was on Tuesday.
Mm,
This man has created a path to authoritarianism on the backs of immigrants. He has demonized immigrants, and he has really moved to dismantle our democracy by blaming it all on immigrants. And it doesn't escape me that the people that he is trashing are mostly brown and black immigrants. So the singling out of Somali immigrants during the State of the Union, appalling, with deep racial overtones, right? The way
please say
he
that.
talked
Yeah.
about them, they are of no value. The fact that he has shut down the refugee process altogether, but yet the only refugees he's allowing into the country are white Africans from South Africa, right? And so the State of the Union, to me, it was so divisive,
Yeah.
and hateful and racist and deeply unnecessary. And throughout the last few months, when you talk about Minnesota, one of the things that's striking is that he keeps trying to gaslight Americans.
Mhm.
What you saw in Minnesota actually didn't happen. These US citizens were domestic terrorists, And he's using immigration in really dangerous ways. And what we're about to see is his demonization of immigrants as a pretext to send ICE to polling stations throughout the United States when it comes time to vote.
But let's drill down on immigrants. He
Okay.
talked about at first he was talking about these non-white people coming across the southern border who happen to be from Mexico. That's what he was talking about before. But let's talk about who is in Minnesota that's being targeted. Somalis. That's not Mexico. That is people of color, darker skinned Africans and other Africans, right? If he really wanted to target, he would not be in Minnesota. He would be in Texas and some other highly concentrated places. Am I correct?
Yeah, look, he has demonized brown and black people systematically, right? Recall the first time he ran,
Mm.
what did he do when he announced his candidacy? He talked about Mexicans being rapists and criminals, and that is really where the drumbeat of xenophobia and racism really began, right? That was when he started to really demonize immigrants. He has demonized, what did he say about Haitians? That they're eating dogs in Springfield, Ohio. He has targeted Somalis. We've already said, he said that they're of little, what did he call them, pirates during the State of the Union, and that they are of no value, and he called them garbage. Right?
And said if any lawmaker tries to hold it up, they're going to go after them. If
Yes.
any lawmaker tries to stand in their way, they're going to go after them. That's ridiculous.
And he has been really also clear about drawing the contrast between immigrants of color and European immigrants, right? The last, when he was last president before this, he talked about Norwegians. Boy, we really need more people from Norway. So to me, the analysis is deeply racist, and we can't turn away from that. We cannot turn away from the framework of immigration, which really is a white nationalist framework.
A white nationalist framework. This is not myth. This is not conjecture. You are telling the truth. So let's talk about how and drill down how bad it's become. Because now, because the federal government feels that they are not, that Minnesotans are not cooperating, they are now cutting Medicaid. What is that? Is that even legal? And what will you do in response?
So part of what this administration has really tried to do is to intimidate. It is a page straight out of an authoritarian playbook, right? The first thing you do is you demonize an entire population, and you use that to try to assert and spread your power. And that is what the administration has done around immigrants. Another, page that he has also lifted is trying to undermine and disrupt and minimize civil society.
Yeah.
Why? Because you don't want civil society to speak out in support of our democracy. So immediately after he became president, who did he target? He targeted universities, he targeted students, he targeted professors, he targeted law firms. That is all about undermining civil society. And then he has also advanced a set of executive orders, some of which we know are just patently unconstitutional. That is about trying to assert your power. So it's almost like it doesn't matter whether an executive order is illegal, they're going to do it anyway. And it's also about testing the boundaries of their own power. What can we do and what can we get away with? And I'll also say around the idea of ICE on our streets, I do think this administration is also grooming Americans to get used to the idea.
Yes.
We have men in uniform cracking heads all over our neighborhoods and all over our communities.
And sometimes not in uniform.
No.
How about that?
Yeah.
Not wearing standard issue combat shoes or tactical shoes and pants. We don't, and coming in with these gaiters and masks looking like a throwback from back in slavery times. KKK. I mean, this is out of control. And you're absolutely right. They're trying to they're trying to normalize it. And this is not normal. This is not the United States. And then everywhere we're turning, Kica, we're finding all of these warehouses. These where they're talking about warehousing migrants who are non-white because they're profiling. They're not going after it's just, oh, they look like now. What happens there? How are you fighting back? How is your organization, how is the National Immigration Law Center fighting back with this?
So one of the first things we did as soon as the Trump took power was we launched an initiative called the Defending Democracy Initiative. Why? Because our analysis from the outset, we did 10 months of scenario planning, and our analysis when we emerged from the 10 months of scenario planning was that if Trump won, we would see an intentional effort to undermine our democracy, and we would see authoritarianism really taking hold in the United States. And so the way that I describe it is that NILC, which is our acronym, would no longer be focused just on immigration, that we really had to show up at the intersection of protecting our democracy and protecting immigrant rights. So a lot of our efforts have been around that. What are the tools that we're using? We're using litigation. I work with really brilliant lawyers who have not been afraid to sue the administration. The latest lawsuit that we filed was 2 weeks ago, and that was because one of the things that this administration has done is to say we're going to halt all visas from people from these 75 countries, the majority of whom are countries with majority populations of color. And so we sued the administration. We're suing the administration around critical issues that we think are all about undermining our democracy. We also work with immigrant rights organizations on the ground. And so we're coordinating and providing support to those organizations who are on the front lines, trying to protect people in their specific communities. And we're also doing a lot of Know Your Rights information. Why? Because everybody in this country has constitutional rights.
Exactly.
And everybody needs to know what their constitutional rights are. And immigrants also need to be able to exercise a sense of agency. Not only should I know what my rights are, but if I'm going to make critical decisions about myself and my family, I need to have the facts at hand. So we're doing a lot of Know Your Rights information in multiple languages to make sure that people are able to exercise their constitutional rights.
So I want to come back to know your rights because that is very important, but I want to put a pin in that for 1 second because I want to go to the chat. Chris says warehouses are crazy. Omar says $38 billion being spent on more warehouses.
That's
Kendra
right.
Kendra says he and his millionaire and billionaire buddies have gotten richer, a lot richer. A lot of these prisons and detention centers are privatized, hello,
Right.
by
Most of them are.
right. Privatized meaning private sector friends or people who have a lot of money who can build these places, and they get rich off of the fact that these places are filled to capacity. Because think about this, you have to have food, you have to give a contract for somebody to do the food, you have to do a contract for bedding and all that stuff. These people are getting rich on the detention of us, okay, of us. All right, it's just like the prison system, right? Am I right, Kica?
And I will say, look, people refer to these places as detention centers, which gives us this veneer of legitimacy. These are prisons, and actually some of these detention centers are jails, right? And prisons that have been emptied out because
Yes.
some progressive reforms around criminal justice issues. And now they're being used to warehouse immigrants. There is something deeply immoral about the idea that our government is contracting with these for-profit corporations. Their bottom line isn't the health and welfare of immigrants in detention. Their bottom line is profit. So what do we see? Terrible conditions. That little boy, Liam Conejo, the one who was arrested and taken to a detention center in Texas,
Sweet baby.
he got sick immediately because of the terrible food and the terrible conditions. There are now 36 people who have died in detention because the conditions have been so terrible. And now there's $38 billion, like one of your audience members says, that are really being deployed so that all of these different warehouses are being bought up so they could warehouse human beings.
Yeah. So I want to get to this before we let you go. I'm so thankful, Kica, that you are here with us, drinking your big cup of coffee while I'm sipping my tea and knocking the teapot over. So listen, as we talk about knowing your rights, we were talking about this morning in our meeting. There is an issue of if you've employed someone who is perceived to be an illegal migrant, and they're in your home, what do we do because I've been told that you don't say anything. That you can tell the police that they're there, and you can tell the person who's in the house, hey, I'm not in this, but I'm not going to give you up. What is our right? What is our right, and what can we do?
So the first thing you need to know is that for the law enforcement to enter your home, they need to have what is known as a judicial warrant. Now, there are two different kinds of warrants, and I'm going to try not to get too wonky right now, but there is something called an administrative warrant that ICE can issue, which gives them the authority to arrest somebody on the streets. It does not give them the authority to enter your home. In
Okay.
order for them to enter your home, they need a judge to sign off on what is called a judicial warrant. What ICE is doing is tricking people. And what they do is they'll knock on your door and they'll say, we want to come in, we have a warrant, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to ask them to either slip the warrant under your door or to hold it up against your door if there's glass there, right? And you need to look to make sure that it's actually signed by a judge and that all of the details are correct, the name, the address, and it's signed by a judge. Because if it is not signed by a judge and you see that it's an administrative warrant, that means you have every right to say, I do not consent to let you enter my home, and ICE has to respect that.
So,
It's important for people to know that there is a difference, and you are protected by the Fourth Amendment. You have every right to not give permission for somebody to enter your home without a judicial warrant. I'll say quickly, the problem right now is that ICE leadership is secretly telling ICE officers to ignore their constitutional obligations and to just enter people's homes.
So if we listen to this and do exactly what you say, we will not be looking like we're somebody who's aiding and abetting or something like that. Okay, good.
You are protecting your constitutional rights.
All right. And helping them to figure out what they have to do, who's in your house, until the judge does get a warrant. Okay. Thank you for saying that. Kica Matos, the president of the National Immigration Law Center. Kica, come back soon.
Thank you for having me. I'd be happy to come back anytime.
That's a big old cup. I don't know. Send me the link for that. As long as I don't have to pay a tariff, I think I'm going to get it. Thank you, Kica.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Guys, you heard from Kica Matos. That was some great information that we needed as Donald Trump is continuing to drill down on immigration. Ira says we are traumatized. It's Irna or something like that. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, but it's IRINA, says we are traumatized by DJT. The trajectory says vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Omar says $9 for blueberries here in California. And you sent us that picture too, Omar. Thank you for that. And Amy says privatized prisons means that their goal isn't to rehabilitate, it's to make a profit. Ooh, child, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. Now, before we go to our next guest, I want you all to know you need to subscribe. You need to subscribe for this programming, the best programming there is on any platform. Come on over to the Contrarian. Come on over to the T. And for all of you who are watching on IG, come on over. Move on over. Move on over to Substack and subscribe to April and subscribe to the Contrarian. We want you. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And now I am going to move down the road to a place called Georgia, a good old Georgia. And I am so pleased to be with someone that I knew her in her previous life, which is crazy. Guys, let's bring her in. Mo Ivory, the Fulton County Commissioner for District 4. Mo, hello. Well, Commissioner Ivory, hello.
Oh, thank you so much, April. How are you, my sister?
I'm good, my sister. So I just have to put this out. So everyone has other lives, and we have reiterations of ourselves and stuff. Mo and I used to, I used to be in radio. I started out in radio, but
Right.
Mo was actually in radio. She was a co-host of was it morning and afternoons, or both, or one, either way.
So a lot. I've been on mornings and afternoons.
Come on, Mo. I love
Yeah.
She's a radio woman after my heart, but she's also fighting for the people. My sister, thank you for joining us. You see
Yes.
Mo on television talking about what's happening in Fulton County. Mo, those ballots were sacred and secure.
Yes, they were. The way we do things in Fulton County,
So
sacred and secure.
what's the status now?
Yeah, so they came in on January 28th and they raided our elections office. They took 656 boxes on 24 pallets of ballots, registration tapes, voter, just information, and then absentee ballot envelopes, which is really the most critical thing that they took because that has people's personally identifiable information on it. So we do not know exactly where the ballots are because nobody is telling us anything. We hear, like you hear in the news or anywhere else, that maybe they're in Virginia. That day, we heard that they were going to Quantico. We can't confirm that because nobody has called us and said, oh, your ballots arrived and they're safe. So we are just hoping that they are preserving them. But, as to the ballots, we have a digital backup copy of the ballots.
Oh,
So
oh,
the
good.
ballots, yeah. So the ballots don't contain any identifiable information. They literally are just a piece of paper that shows who somebody voted for, but no identification as to who that somebody was. But that doesn't matter because they are our documents and we should have them. He does not have the right to have those documents because of this thing called, the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so we are fighting in court to get those documents back. And that's where we are right now.
So I talked to a Fulton County resident, and I want to hear what you have to say on the other side of this. Take a look.
Okay.
Um, Before we go, I got two questions for you. What about Fulton County? Because that's people are calling that racist, and I know. And
I'm
then
wondering if they got my ballot, but go ahead. I live in
they
Fulton
got your
County.
ballot, but it's not secure now.
No, I
Nothing is
know.
secure.
Right.
And that's what your father and the lieutenants, that was the second piece after the Civil Rights Act was passed into law. Voting rights. What do we say? I mean, what happens now? We are getting ready to see a drastic change in redistricting. Fulton County, they're trying to relitigate 2020. Why? It's just crazy.
Are we asking a rhetorical question because we all know why?
I know.
Concentration, power, authoritarianism for the sake of, continuing to feed and support, you and your cronies. It's about power, control, and centralization. We know all that. We know this. We know what's happening.
We know what's happening.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
I mean, Jim Crow, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, what do you want to call it? You know what I mean? Dr. Bernice King is exactly right. She lives in Fulton County. And so I know she is concerned about it, as we all are, because it's not really about 2020. It never has been about 2020. Even if he would have, let's suppose in some fantasy world, he did win Georgia, which he did not. He still wouldn't have won the presidency. Right? Georgia wasn't the only state that he lost that had an impact on the electoral college numbers. So, I mean, the idea that he could do anything about 2020, we know that he can't. And so this is really about 2026. And so it's to stir up controversy, to make a manufactured crisis, to make people afraid to go to the polls. I mean, that's what this is about in 2026.
He has a limp, wet piece of spaghetti noodle, throwing it at the wall to see if it will stick. And
That's
if it
right.
sticks here, it's going to go some other place. So here's my question, and I'm glad you said that you had a backup. But what if they do indeed try to challenge and say we did win? What happens there? How does this play out?
Well, they didn't win. So there's no, what they want to do is take these documents and then come back like, in 3 weeks from now and say like, oh my God, in Georgia, there was 700 and no, it's going to be because he needed 11,780 votes. So he's going to say, oh, there were 12,000 votes that aliens or that illegal immigrants voted illegally,
And
I
dead
really
people
did
voted.
win,
And dead
and
people
dead
voted.
people
Yeah.
voted, and people who were never on the rolls who moved out of the state, and he's going to do all of that or whatever. And it's just a lie. Those ballots have been counted, recounted, audited again, recounted again, fought after in court in front of judges that were appointed by him. Never has there been found to be fraud in Fulton County elections. But here's the most important thing that people should understand. If he thinks that there was fraud in Fulton County elections in 2020, why doesn't he think there was fraud in 2024? Right. So in 2020, we were all fraudulent, right? But then in 2024, we cleaned ourselves up so wonderful and we were able to do a fantastic election. And then only 2 years later, oh, we're back to fraud again. Come on with that.
Mo.
I mean, come on with that. Like,
Come on, Mo.
we're not, he really is taking Fulton County voters for stupid, for stuck on stupid, and we're not. Like, Fulton County voters are used to voter suppression. When I worked at Stacey Abrams' campaign in 2018 and in 2022, we fought voter suppression. I mean, for God's sake, Governor Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State in 2018 over his own election. We know what voter suppression looks like. We know what SB 202 was meant to do in 2021, which was to take away all things, including water and food, so that people wouldn't want to stand in line. We know what this is. We are prepared in Fulton County. We know what to do. So he could bring it all he wants, but we are going to do exactly what we always do, which is show up at the polls, protect our neighbors, make a plan, and vote.
Clear conflict of interest. How do you run a race? You're in the race and you're over top of the whole race running against Stacey Abrams. We unfortunately we knew the outcome. And I'm not saying anything was wrong, but
oh no, it was wrong.
Clear to be he was. What did you say?
Oh, it was wrong. No, I'll say it. I'll say it. It was voter suppression. Oh, please. In 2018, I clearly believe that Stacey Abrams won the campaign for governor. I totally believe that. And but okay, but you know what? Did we storm the Capitol? Did we tear down and have people die? No. Right? We came back and we tried again. Right? And we followed the rules.
I love the fact that you are taking your voice and making it power, using it for the good.
Thank you.
And you used it yesterday, well, this week on the Hill. Senator Padilla brought you in?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, it was yesterday? Okay, yeah. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about your testimony and what happened.
Yeah, I was invited to the Senate Rules Committee to talk about the raid, and I was so honored that Senator Padilla and the whole Senate Rules Committee welcomed me there. And I was joined by my Georgia senators, Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock, and I was so grateful to them for that, along with a bunch of other senators, Senator Adam Schiff, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Cortez Masto. I mean, there was a lot of senators there, and they wanted to really understand what happened that day at the raid. And I told them about what it felt like being on the inside, what the feeling was, and, you know, how it was very tense and just what went on. And it was just basically what I believe to be an illegal warrant issued based on no wrongdoing in order to circumvent a civil process to look at the ballots that the Republican Party did not want to, one, be supervised to look at our ballots again, or to pay for copies that they would have had to pay for in order to get copies of those ballots. They wanted the originals and they didn't want to have to pay for them or to be supervised. So they used the criminal warrant procedure from the federal government to come in and swoop them up.
Is this about Fani Willis?
I mean, listen, it's about his disdain for Georgia, period, right? It's about how he knows that Fulton County is Black. It's about how he knows that Fulton County shows up in Georgia. And when we do, we change Georgia elections. And he knows that if he comes into the middle of all of that and Georgia is disrupted, that it can then be duplicated in other cities. But we're not having it. So we call it out. We, you know, like I said yesterday on the Hill, the South's got something to say and we call it out. We don't hold our tongue. We're going to talk about it. We're going to tell people what they need to do and we're going to mobilize in the streets. And that's what we do.
So I'm going to the chat. The chat is live. Kendra says our tax dollars are being used in service of Trump's ego, exclamation point. Kendra says our tax dollars are being used again in service of Trump's ego. He just can't seem to accept the results, like a kid who loses a board game and immediately and loudly proclaims that the other kids cheated. That's a good analogy. Omar says SB 202 is a disgrace and Fulton County is 43% Black, just like you said. Trajectory says abolish the Electoral College, exclamation point. He only believes in the election if he wins.
That's exactly right. That's why he's not asking for 2024. But let me just say this about like how it really goes down to people's tax dollars, because people need to really understand like the challenges that we face in Fulton County. Like we obviously have election challenges, but we have a really big crisis going on in our Fulton County jail, right? So when he comes into Fulton County and he does this kind of stuff, and then we have to go get a bigger legal team and we have to assemble a whole bunch of people to fight him, then we have to use your tax dollars for those legal costs. So then we can't use them for the jail. So it really matters. So if you have a relative in the Fulton County jail right now, and we're using our tax dollars to pay for fighting against Donald Trump on a baseless, pointless, made up controversy, then we don't have those tax dollars to go in and repair the flood or to repair conditions or hire more staff, more detention officers. So it has a real impact, right? So elections matter. And when somebody says like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, now you see how much it does.
So let me say this. I'm going to add another one to the tax dollars. When I saw the men's Olympic hockey team flown over on a private, I'm like, what? I'm
Are you
like,
kidding me? Are you kidding me? What about Tulsi Gabbard just being in Georgia, period, on the day of the raid? Why did she need to
tell
get
me
a
about,
private?
yes,
Why did
I
she
got,
need to get a private plane paid by for us with a whole carload of black SUVs brought up to do nothing? I literally was staring at her. She was doing nothing.
see,
Just
that's what I
standing
need.
there
Give
like,
me the tea on that because I talked to Charles Coleman. We had Charles Coleman on, and I was very upset. I said, why did Tulsi Gabbard herself go for this? Was there something so secret and top secret that she herself needed to be there?
not at all. I
Did
mean,
she
we're
talk
talking
to
about
you?
a where. No, she didn't talk to hardly anybody. You know, she had on that cap. She was just walking around acting important. And you know, she didn't no, she didn't really play a role. She had no role in it. I mean, it was like I want you to think of there's no big mystery about what a elections warehouse looks like. It's a big old warehouse with cages, right? Okay, 2020 ballots there, 2024 ballots there. I mean, it's not some special top secret thing or anything, right? So you just go into the cage and, you know, you get the documents, whatever. And she was just standing there watching the whole thing. And I thought to myself, what a waste of taxpayer dollars for her to be here doing nothing but getting ready to like how a father sends their child in to watch the siblings do what they do. And then he calls them back and he goes like, yes, daddy, they did what you said. Like that's what it was. And then she makes the phone call to him, like, you know, oh, they did what you said. Aren't you so happy? Tell them how great they are. I mean, it's just such,
Mm.
yeah,
I could tell what you were saying.
yes.
Mary says Trump is trying to federalize the election. He does want to make it a national thing. Right now, elections are governed by the state. What is your greatest fear with this? And do you think he's going to try to do that in Georgia, at least?
Oh, yeah, he's going to try to. But let me tell you what he's doing before he gets to the federal government. There's state election boards. And in Georgia, we have a Republican state election board, right? So what the state election board did in SB 202 back in 2021 was they gave themselves the power to appoint a elections superintendent to watch over elections.
Yeah.
So they took that power away from the Secretary of State. And why? Because then the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, said that the Fulton elections were perfect. There was no fraud, and he would not give Donald Trump those 11,780 votes. So what his own party did was come in behind him and say, you were a bad boy, Brad. Now you can't be in charge of elections anymore. We're going to pass some legislation that says that we appoint the person who is going to look over elections. So right now, we're just sitting here waiting for the state election board to say we have to take over elections. And listen, that could happen.
Yeah, it could.
But we'll still be ready.
So here's what I want you to do. When you get the latest, the next piece that comes, please call your old radio friend April.
I will.
Mo, you are something. I am just so proud
Thank
of you.
Thank you.
She's a former Mo Ivory is former radio person, but honey, she is the Fulton County Commissioner for District 4 down in Georgia, fighting the good fight over those ballots in
Yes.
Fulton County. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, baby. I just want to tell everybody that I am also running to be the next chair of the Fulton County Commission because we need a stronger leader, because we could have seen these things coming. We had a state case, we had a federal case that we already knew about. They were coming for us and we weren't watching fast enough. So I want you to know that I am running because our leadership needs to be proactive instead of reactive. So I want you all to go to moivory.com, follow me on Instagram at the Mo Ivory, and I hope that you can tell your friends in Fulton and you could support me because we need proactive leadership to deal with this chaos that we have going on in our country, because we're strong in Fulton and we could be better.
Yeah, and we're unbreakable according to the NAACP.
That's
I
right.
appreciate you, Mo. Thank you
Thank you,
so
April.
much.
All right.
Wow, what a full show. I'm telling you, my heart is full, and I'm so thankful for these fighters, these people who are really trying to uphold democracy and humanity. That's the piece, humanity. What was right is no longer right in the eyes of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Something is wrong. Chaos. I'm not talking about get smart. I'm talking about true chaos that is impacting each and every one of us every day. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley said the state of our union is traumatized. In 2025, at the end of 2025, my dear friend Susan Rice, former UN ambassador, Susan Rice, former domestic policy advisor, former national security advisor, said Trump last year was an abomination. It is getting worse, everyone. It's getting worse, and you cannot just stand by and let it happen. But with that said, I want to wrap this show up and tell you again, this is going to be the second time I've said this. Subscribe. Subscribe to the T, subscribe to me, subscribe to the Contrarian. We've got a lot of great programming that you're not going to see on other shows and other platforms. Come here. We're bringing you everything. And everybody who's on IG, on Instagram, come on over. Don't be afraid. It doesn't hurt. I promise. I came over. Come on over with me. And with that said, as I'm wrapping up the show, once I get off here tonight, I've got to run upstairs and pack my suitcase so I can fly to the West Coast and go to the 57th Annual Image Awards. Yes, we are still dealing with our image, positive images of people of color in the midst of all of this chaos. Donald Trump said Tuesday, DEI is dead. In your mind, it is. We are dealing with positivity and the positive images of people of color as he tries to profile and oppress and suppress and deport people. It is so important that we remember who we are. We are a nation of what? We are a nation of natives, immigrants, and slaves. I'm a descendant of a slave, and this descendant of a slave is going to fly over to the West Coast to see the positive images of our people. That's what brings me joy. My radical joy, Black girl joy, and that radical joy, it spells resistance. See, Rachel, I got it in there. It spells resistance. And with that said, I want to bring you a piece. I'm ending the show bringing you a piece that kind of symbolizes Black History Month, but more importantly, it symbolizes the importance of knowing the history of an oppressed people. Guys, have a wonderful rest of your evening, a great week. I will see you soon. Guys, roll the tape.
President Trump signed an executive order aimed at what he calls restoring truth and sanity to American history. He's ordering the Smithsonian to promote American greatness and threatens funding for any of the museums that have anti-American exhibits.
Trump calls it restoring truth and sanity to American history. But that's a lie. Trump is attempting to erase history, Black history, American history, in order to sanitize the truth and perpetuate white supremacy. In the face of Trump erasing Black history, it feels important to go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture to preserve the truth in defiance of Trump's sanitation. While walking through the museum, you're immediately confronted with our complicated past. The harsh truth that we were brought here on slave ships, that our founding fathers were slave owners, that some white Americans banded together and used violence to suppress us and our right to vote, that the great Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated for speaking truth to power. This history of Black Americans is harsh but important, and we cannot erase this. Somehow, in spite of the obstacles, Black culture has thrived. Taking a walk around the museum, you're reminded of the accomplishments of creating historically Black colleges and universities in the face of slavery and segregation, of thriving as farmers when the deck was stacked against them, of fighting back against prejudice time and time again.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Of standing strong and practicing radical joy despite these trials. And while the struggle continues, so does our joy. Morgan State Fair, Morgan, we love thee. I want to end with a quote from the great Dr. Bernice King, daughter of the late civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Evil is always going to be present. It's always going to operate through different vessels in every season, in every generation. And that's why my mother was so brilliant when she said struggle is a never, keyword, underline, bold, ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation.